Hello, shalom, and peace to you all this morning. I am going to start getting into teaching, as I have been, but more specific to some of the areas that what I would say the Department of Education and educators, teachers, people that have gone into the educational system, gotten degrees, have basically severely failed and fallen well short of the plumb line of God's word and morality. Let me explain it this way. If you have taken on the mantle of an educator in America and are not teaching the true history of America, you get a paycheck to go in and lie to children, to suppress the truth and unrighteousness, as your scriptures indicate, yeah, you have your reward. It's not limited to just biblical frameworks in terms of you just, because of your religious beliefs, you think that because you don't do specific things in the church, but you do it outside of the church framework, you're not going to be held accountable to telling a lie about American history and lying to Black and Indigenous and Latino children about their history and past. And you don't associate that with the biblical stuff, so you think that's okay. Wrong. So, I'm going to teach the true American history, the real dark American history, and it comes from the angle of the Anglos, or the colonialist angle. It comes from that history, true history, documented history, that no educators talk about. Not in elementary school. Maybe they get a little bit more to it in high school, and then maybe in college you can take some specific coursework. But even now in colleges, they don't talk about what I'm getting ready to talk about. They want to dumb it down and act like it never really happened. No, America, it happened. Absolutely, and we're going to get into that now. So what I've put together is I've consolidated a list of all the historical massacres and racial violence events in the United States history targeting Black communities from the mid-1800s to the 20th century. So we're going to take a little trip back into the Anglos' history of persecuting, killing, massacring, and destroying Black communities. Let's look at that and not avoid the reality of that particular history here in America. So we're going to go through a brief overview of each event. That's going to basically be a chronological list that I've put together that has location and the year that these events occurred, dating back, again, from the mid-1800s to the 20th century. Now, let's just take a little trip back. Mid-1800s. Emancipation Proclamation. People were freed related to a civil war that occurred. Abraham Lincoln released legislation stating the Emancipation Proclamation, slaves were freed. Okay? Post that, I'm going to go through the events in American history chronologically that were a byproduct or a result of the Emancipation Proclamation. Some people were not happy about it on one side of the ledger. So, let's get into this. Real history. Not that fake history those fake teachers out there and godless women and men are doing. So we'll start with the 19th century. Post-Civil War, Reconstruction, and Jim Crow beginnings. The first event in New Orleans, 1866. White mobs attacked Black residents and delegates of a constitutional convention advocating for Black suffrage. Dozens were killed. Number 2, Opelousas, Louisiana, 1868. White supremacists murdered hundreds of Black citizens following a political dispute over Republican Party organizing. St. Bernard Parish, 1868 in Louisiana. White Democrats killed up to 100 Black men ahead of a presidential election to suppress Black voting. Camillo, 1868 in Georgia. A political rally for Black voters and Republicans was attacked by white mobs. Dozens were killed or wounded. Number 5, Eufaula. This is spelled E-U-F-A-U-L-A. It happened in 1874 in Alabama. White Democrats killed dozens of Black voters and Republicans during an election. I keep saying white Democrats. That's what history is showing. It's not me coming up with this crap. This is history. Number 6, Vicksburg, Vicksburg, Mississippi in 1874. A white mob overthrew the Reconstruction era government and hundreds of African Americans were murdered. Colfax, Louisiana, 1873. One of the most infamous massacres of Reconstruction. White paramilitaries killed over 100 black freedom defending a courthouse. Oh, excuse me. Let me read that again. Colfax, 1873. This was in Louisiana. One of the most infamous massacres of Reconstruction. White paramilitaries killed over 100 black freed men defending a courthouse. Clinton, Mississippi, 1875. Dozens of black men killed in pre-election violence to suppress the Republican vote. 1875. Dozens of black men killed in pre-election violence to suppress the Republican vote. Blacks, historically dating back to 1800s, have been Republican voters. Thibodaux, Louisiana, 1887. White vigilantes killed striking black White vigilantes killed striking black sugarcane workers fighting for fair wages. Wilmington, North Carolina, 1898. A violent coup d'état where white supremacists overthrew a multiracial local government and killed many black citizens. Moving into the early 20th century, this would be considered the Red Summer and Jim Crow violence. Atlanta, Georgia, 1906. False reports of assaults led to mobs killing at least 25 black residents and destroying black businesses. Springfield, Illinois, 1908. Race riot in Abraham Lincoln's hometown. 2 black men lynched and black neighborhoods destroyed. East St. Louis, Illinois, 1917. White mobs attacked black workers after economic tensions. At least 100 African Americans were murdered. Chicago, Illinois, 1919. A black teenager's death at a segregated beach sparked days of violence, leaving 38 dead. Elaine, Arkansas, 1919. Black sharecroppers organizing a union were massacred by white mobs, up to 200 killed. Tulsa, Oklahoma, we all are familiar with this one. This is the one that most publicized. 1921, Black Wall Street, destroyed. White mobs burned the prosperous Greenwood district, killing up to 300. Okogie, Florida, 1920. Dozens of black residents killed and homes burned when a man tried to vote in a presidential election. A black man. We've also heard this story depicted in Hollywood. Rosewood, Florida, 1923. Entire black town destroyed after a false accusation of assault. Residents were killed or driven out. We're now moving to the mid-20th century to present, okay? In Detroit, Michigan, 1943, white workers attacked black residents during World War II. 34 people were killed. In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in 1985, police bombed the home of black libertarian group MOVE, killing 11 people, including children, and destroying 60 homes. Charleston, South Carolina, in 2015. We all remember this. A white supremacist murdered 9 black parishioners at Emmanuel AME Church during Bible study. Now, there are some smaller or less publicized events that I wanted to note. Slocum, Texas, in 1910, white residents massacred dozens of black townspeople. The event was long covered up, as often is. 1866, Memphis, Tennessee, white mobs and police attacked black Union veterans and citizens, killing over 40. Washington, D.C., 1919, part of the Red Summer, white mobs and black veterans fought after racist newspaper reports. And in New York, in 1863, Draft riots during the Civil War led to the lynching and murder of many black residents. All right, folks, this is history, all right? These events represent patterns of racially motivated violence, often aimed at suppressing black political power, economic progress, and civil rights. It forms a historical backdrop of ongoing discussions for racial injustice and historical memory here in the U.S. It's not going away. It's just getting more and more prevalent and obvious that those people are only for themselves. They are really fucked up and evil. And I know that's a cuss word. It's true. Now, I've put together a chronological timeline chart with locations and the casualties that visualize all the major anti-black massacres in U.S. history from 1866 to 2015. It's a real-time map that shows from basically the previous events from dating back all the way to present, the latest events. And these are all geared towards white supremacist events or events that would be looking to suppress the rights aimed at black individuals relative to political power, economic progress, and civil rights. This is facts. I also have a map of major anti-black massacres in U.S. history that really just kind of looks at locationally, like in America, where these things actually were taking place. So, again, I have a timeline chart and a data set of major anti-black massacres in U.S. history dating from 1866 to 2015. It displays when and where each occurred with brief summaries of what happened. I also have a map of major anti-black massacres in U.S. history, same timeline. It's more of an educational, historical map of major anti-black massacres in U.S. history, same timeline. The markers represent like a documented side of racial violence against black communities, primarily during Reconstruction, Jim Crow, and the Civil Rights eras. A lot of this is clustered across the South, Midwest, and a few northern cities. It just reflects how widespread the pattern of violence was. It wasn't confined to one region. It was all over our country. And the scriptures that they depicted would state, hey, you need to have cities for the manslayer to run to in the event there's problems. And that basically just didn't happen in America. Never really happened. So, I've gone through the great lengths to try to inform all people of what's going on related to the biblical truth. We're related to the biblical word. And I didn't leave anybody out. That's white, that's black, that's everybody. What continues to happen to me is people want to point at me and say, I'm the problem. I'm the issue. Okay. We can keep going that route. I would submit to you, this doesn't lie. This is your history, Anglos. You did it to us. You did it to us. I'm just sharing the data. Maybe you forgot. Maybe because it's been so much time and generations, and then there have been leaders suppressing this truth, you forgot. God didn't forget, and he's not mocked. So, you keep coming onto my page, and you keep blanking out, not trying to talk to your own people and resolve issues, and I'm talking to Anglos. You keep coming on and getting mad, and you want to send me text messages saying nigger this and nigger that, but you don't want to look in the mirror. You don't want to reflect on what is truly a disposition with you spiritually. You're so adept at looking at your past and your history down to your own family spiritual lineage that you have blatantly cursed yourselves to the point of that you don't even know what your eternity holds for you. You got a book from a white man that told you, believe in this guy and you're saved. You didn't really understand the deception, the spirituality that preceded that book that Philip of Macedonia created. That some people that were just basically doing their jobs, same thing like everybody, oh, I'm just doing my job, I don't know. Well, you just took orders, but guess what? The orders you took were evil orders. And you're going to be held accountable too, because you didn't do what the scriptures say and be a Berean and see if these things were so. You just took somebody's word for it, and therefore continue to persecute God's elect and chosen people. And as a result, you're going to fall off and you're going to be like, oh, I didn't know. No one told me. My past teachings held y'all accountable to this. Again, the social dissertation is over. We're now transitioning into true enlightenment teachings to the people of Most High God that want to know, the people that are in the dark or spiritually blinded by the light of the false teaching of the Bible. I've already gone through great lengths to try to explain to you your history and your past, and you continue to ignore, and you continue to, by result of your party and political affiliations, show me your true colors. Keep seeing week after week after week after week Republican candidates from an Anglo origin synonymous with pedophilia and just disgusting, despicable, heinous acts. Children, men with men, women with young men in educational environments. I can't even tell you how many people I know associated or affiliated in the Cypher district that even know some people that I know that are freaking sick in the fucking head. Touching kids, going to school, doing this crap. Like, what is wrong with y'all, man? Why do you have to be touching kids in educational environments? Why do you say you represent right views on the Republican side and you're doing things on the left, touching kids? Why? And nobody wants to talk about anything on your side? You don't want to hold this accountability conversation? You don't want to hold forums to say, hey, we've got a problem in our community, guys. We got to get this thing under control. No, you don't want to do that. And then you want to suppress your truth history of your dark past, killing and oppressing blacks through post-Civil War Reconstruction efforts, through the Jim Crow times, through the Red Summers, Jim Crow violence, smaller or less publicized events of violence and killing and oppression and martyrdoms of blacks, to include religious leaders like Martin Luther King. Like, your history is mucked up and muddy as hell, and you don't want to look in the mirror. Therefore, you come on my platform, this is the history you're going to get. I'm not talking about biblical history because you guys corrupted the scriptures. You have your reward. You have Moses and the prophets. You have your teachers. Go to those guys. Go to freaking doggone people like Taylor and doggone Dr. Woods and all those people. You go to those people for your biblical truth. Anglos, go to your teachers and scribes to see if these things are so. Of course, they're going to tell you I'm lying, but I just told you your history. You hung blacks. You killed blacks. You had Red Summers. You had Jim Crow. You had it, and you have your rewards.